Can you guys hear me now? Let's try this. All right, sounds like we got some sound now. There we go. Get that thing off there. All right, so as you guys are jumping on there, I want to thank you guys for letting me know that we didn't have no sound tonight. I appreciate that. Kent Williams sent me a message via Facebook and wanted to know how to drag lakes in the wintertime. Well, not really how to drag lakes, how to approach dragging lakes in the winter, colder times of the year. So tonight we're going to break that down. If you guys are new to the channel, this is Slender Cat Outdoors. I am Chris Souders, your host, and we are going to be breaking down questions every Tuesday that you guys want to know. So if you got your questions, leave them in the comments below, and we will get to them and break them down wherever they are. Sometimes I may have to contact some people and get some information, but we will do our best to break it down for you. But tonight, we're talking about dragging. We're talking about dragging lakes, during the colder times of the year. So once that water in the fall time, it can be a very, very, very good time of the year to fish. But as that water continues to get colder or get cooler, what do? Do we continue to pull boards the same speeds that we was in the spring and in the summer, or do we slow down, find deeper areas, things like that? Chris Bottom, he asks, "Are you selling the Pro Cat?" And yes, that the question to that answer is yes. The red Slender Cat boat will be for sale. It's for sale now. I just haven't posted it anywhere. I'm kind of getting it touched up and getting it ready to go out the door before the new one comes in, which I am super excited about. If you guys did not see, or you guys are not on social media or heard the news, I got blessed over the weekend with the opportunity to join SeaArk as an official pro staff member and join their family, and I couldn't be happier. More of an opportunity. It's just a great opportunity for me and for my family. It opens up a lot of doors and a lot of abilities to be able to do so. Yeah, that's look forward for all that stuff. Cannot wait to get it and start showing it to you guys. Yeah, so much to do with that boat. I mean, that thing is, if you guys don't know, it's the Dynasty. It's a 22-foot boat. Lots of storage, completely different. Same hull that they've always had, for the Pro Cats, Easy Cats, B Cats, stuff like that. 3 inches. They raised the sides 3 inches. Put a 6-inch extension deck for throwing cast nets and stuff off the front. Just a lot of upgrades, and I cannot wait to get it in the garage and start, showing you guys, what that's all about. So it looks like we got a pretty good crowd going on tonight. I can't thank you guys enough for joining in. Like I said, tonight we got a question from Kent Williams, and we're going to be talking about dragging baits in the winter months, and we started talking about the cooler temperatures and what that does to those fish. So specifically, Kent had a couple questions of what does he need to do. So he lives in an area that is a lake. They got blue cats. His water temperature, he told me, was about in the mid 40s. So I'm gonna guess mid to upper 40s, somewhere like that. So that's kind of what we're going to base tonight's conversation on, and how we're going to break it down for him and anybody else that might have that same situation wherever you live. And also remember to hit that @Chris Souders on chat, and it will blow it up in yellow so that I can see it as it's going through my chat, or if you have a question. Okay. So one of the big questions are always is, do I drag or do I anchor? Jason, you're very welcome, buddy. So, what temperatures do I start to anchor in lakes? What temperatures do I start to drag in lakes? things of that nature. So let's talk about one thing for to start with. So in the colder months, you can still drag. Don't be afraid to drag in lakes, 40 to 45 degrees, somewhere around in there. It's a good way to find fish. Okay, and then once you find those fish, you may have to, change your approach on what you're going to do to catch those fish. Okay, so in the fall time, let's talk about fall. We're going to drag 90% of the time. Okay, or I'm going to. If I'm in a lake and I'm looking for fish, that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to drag baits and try to find those fish and locate them. And then my approach might be a little bit different, after I find those fish. So late fall, one of the things that I like to start with is a half mile an hour. Okay. So, a half mile an hour is like a good starting point. That's going to get you in the ballpark. Okay. Now, is that like a certain speed that you have to go all the time? Absolutely not. You're gonna during this time of year, you're gonna want to change, your speeds to try to see if they're active or if they're kind of wanting it slower or in a different way. Okay, so half mile an hour is a good starting point. Now, in the fall, if you find them, they could be feeding heavily. So once you find those fish, it might be a good time to anchor up on them. So that's something that you want to try as well. Okay, a lot of people, and myself included, get stuck on just having to drag baits in lakes, and I don't want to say it's a misconception because it's not. But I've been proven wrong many times by a good friend of mine that's a very very good lake fisherman, and he will find those fish, set up on them, and catch the fire out of them. So do not rule that out at any time. Okay, but now the main question was, once that water temperature gets down, what do we start to do? How do we approach that? So as winter comes on and those fish start to slow down and get more sluggish, we're going to slow our speeds down. We may slow our speeds down to like 0.3, 0.2. That is painfully slow for me, but sometimes that's what you've got to do. We're going to downsize our baits. That's another good thing for you to do. So Sonic Catnapper, he asks, if you go across the same spot twice and you catch fish, is that a good indicator of trying to anchor there? Yes, for me, yes, but it kind of depends. It depends on those bites, So if I catch those fish and maybe they were, I was getting short strikes, or maybe they're really buried up in the mud, they're really sluggish. They hit the smaller baits, something of that nature, something that's going to indicate to me that I need to give them some time. Then yes, you can do that. Now, something else you can also do is shorten your leader, okay, and get it closer to the bottom. So for a lot of people, we always think about our leader, being fairly long. Okay, now, so you guys can see I got a Tackling Cats, fast snap there with a barrel swivel, got a drifting stick, and that's on a sinker slide. Now that's not the way I always do it, but if I'm dragging baits and I know I'm going to be dragging baits, then that's the way I'll do it. But if I'm going to be anchoring, I might put a 3-way on that just to, so if I stop and anchor, my float don't try to float my bait up. Okay, but this is a fairly long leader line. As you guys can tell, it's probably 3.5 foot, maybe 4 foot. So if I went across that same spot and I was catching fish, but they was indicating to me that they were short striking it or buried in mud, something like that, two things you can do. You can stop. You can get on that spot and stop and try to see if they want to anchor it up, or that style, or you can shorten this up, or take your float and put it farther towards your swivel. And that's going to allow your bait to be closer to the bottom, down there, kind of rubbing in that mud right there where they're at. Okay. A lot of questions coming in here tonight, and I really enjoy that. That's awesome. That means we're going to be busy tonight. Okay. So, as the water gets colder, okay, will depend on a couple different things. So for me personally, in the fall, I like to go towards that deeper water. Okay, it seems to me personally, I prefer deeper water in the fall. As the water starts to cool off, seems like those fish want to go towards that deeper water, and then kind of reverse that. And as the water temperature starts to warm up, those fish will come out of that deeper water and into that shallow water to kind of warm up. Okay, so a lot of it will depend on the time of year. Now, this time of year specifically, in your area, if you're you're starting to get longer days, that sun's starting to be up more, then you're going to want to, really look at that shallower water when that sun gets warm. That's just going to be a couple more degrees. It may not seem like a lot, but it definitely means a lot to them. Okay. So, Justin, hopefully that answered your question on what depth do you drag in colder weather. So, like I said, in the springtime, we'll kind of try to push this in a little bit farther with it. In the fall time, as we hit 60, 50, those fish are really active, really feeding. I'm kind of going towards that deeper water, maybe 30, 35, 40 foot, depending on your body of water. Okay. Now, if you don't have that deeper water, then that's going to be different. And then as it gets super, super cold, I like those deeper holes, ledges, that kind of thing. Maybe a hump where they can come up on during the day and back down into that deeper water during the night, when they're not feeding. Mike Greenwell makes a good point. He said that this weekend totally changed his thoughts on fishing deep water. In 42 foot of water, caught 29 fish in 13 foot of water. And that's a huge point. As these days are starting to get longer, those fish are wanting to kind of move up into that shallower water. We may not be able to feel it. We may not be able to tell it a lot, but it's definitely, for them, that time of year is coming along. Okay. All right. So another question that Kent wanted to know was kind of how to drag in the wintertime. So we're going to slow down. So one thing we all know, the slower we go, the harder it is to, get your boards to go out. Every board is different. Some boards are better than others at slower speeds. And some boards, just kind of are the best of different worlds, okay? So something that I like to do if I'm going to pull and try to pull boards at a very, very slow speed, I will kind of speed my boat up, get my boards to come out, and then slow my boat down. And I want to be able to have it slow down, but my board's out kind of before I hit my target. Now, we know we're not going to be 100% knowing where those fish are going to be, but once those boards kind of start working their way back behind the boat, then we can, goose the boat again, get our boards to jump back out where they need to be, and then vice versa. Because we're going to, there may be a time where you're just going to go 0.2, 0.3. So that's a pretty slow speed to pull, no matter what you're pulling with. Something else that I like to do in the wintertime is pull as light of a weight as I possibly can. So This is a 4-ounce drifting stick. Okay. Now in the winter, and this is a lot of times. I don't want to say just winter, but a lot of times I want to try to pull as light of a weight as I possibly can. Now, the good thing about drifting sticks and most dragon weights out there, there will be different, different weights. That's a 4-ounce, and then you can see this one's thinner, and I believe that's like a 1.7 or maybe a 2-ounce. Okay, so I always try to pull dragon weights with as little weight as I possibly can. And then something else that I will do as well is stagger my lines. I'm the type of person that I like to be way back behind the boat. It just seems it's going to have a smoother presentation. And a lot of times when those fish are real sluggish, they're not wanting to really attack the bait, they will hit those ones way back, behind the boat before they will ones that are real jerky, a lot of activity on them. Okay. Let's see if we can't get back here and catch up on some of these questions. Somebody asked if I use slip floats. I not in the wintertime. In the wintertime, I'm pretty much a dragging style person. I do use slip floats, or a lot of times I will use instead of a slip float, I'll just use a planer board as, kind of basically as a float. So you'll set the depth, put your planer board out, and you can let it go out behind the boat and to the side of the boat and cover a lot more water. Okay. Uh, Rose Childers, yes, they will go shallower. She asked if catfish go shallower in the wintertime uh, for warmer like other fish. And kind of like other fish, it will depend on the time of year. Okay, so if you know, like we was talking about earlier, if it is right off the bat, right there in the in the fall, then they may be going to that deeper water for that warmth. Okay. Dieter, uh, you're horrible, horrible. Uh, you got me off. You caught me off guard there on that one. So yeah, but then as the winter goes on, and as we're getting back into those longer days, the sun's coming up, staying up longer. The water in those shallower areas, shallower flats, is going to be a little bit warmer. They will come up there and get into that sun and warm their backs up. So don't hesitate to go into super shallow water. 10, 5, foot, 3 foot. I have actually seen their dorsal fin sticking up out of the back of out of the water. Real Catnapper's asking, this is a good question. Now we're talking about lakes here for Kent, but I want to answer this and touch on this as well. So Real Catnappers TV, he asks, do you prefer going with the current or against when dragging? So there can be current in lakes at times, but I'm going to guess that you're talking about a river. In the Ohio River where I'm from, it will get super, super low current, almost non-existent in the summertime, depending on things. Okay. So during this time, I prefer to drag upriver. Point 3 and down, I will drag upriver. Okay. Now, will that change? Yes, because from day to day, they may be, positioned different on whatever I'll be fishing. So I may drag it back down river just to see if those fish are positioned different. And also speeds, uh, also speeds will make a huge difference as well. You know, Trey, he says water temps in St. Louis are in the 30s. Would you still drag? You know, I was, if you would ask me this question um, 2 years ago, I would have said no, absolutely not. I would find fish and, just sit on them. But I have been proven wrong with this particular thing. Even in temperatures really, really low, uh, some of the best draggers I know will drag baits to find those fish. And then once they find those fish, then they will set up on them. Okay, so yes, I would have to say yes, I still would. Um, but would that be the only avenue that I took? No. If I done it and got no success, then I would try to find some fish and set up on them and wait them out. Okay, but I have to say that I have seen fish personally be caught whenever the water gets below 40. Sonic Catnapper. The show will be airing May 4th on a Pursuit channel. Now it's called Catfish Crazy for anybody that doesn't know. It's all about catfishing, learning how to catfish, really teaching and sharing a lot of information with some of the best fishermen all over the country. Last year we done 8 shows, and it was a really really good time. And like I said, we got to share a lot of information. So make sure you look for that. It'll be on the Pursuit channel May 4th. If you don't have the Pursuit channel, don't worry. Just make sure you guys go over to Catfish Crazy TV on Facebook. Hit that subscribe button, that like button on the Facebook page, and Catfish Crazy on YouTube as well. Hit that subscribe button and you'll be able to watch it an hour after it goes on TV. It'll be loaded up to YouTube on the Catfish Crazy page. Okay, so you guys can watch it there. 777 Outdoors, he asks, what is the reasoning behind dragging such light weights? So for me, dragging in the wintertime or dragging any time period, if I can drag a lighter weight, it just seems to have a nice, smoother approach. It's not that you're going to have less snags, but it just seems like that approach of how it drags through, the contour of the bottom is just a lot smoother. Okay, you don't have that kind of heavy weight kind of dragging things down and then jerking. Clay, me personally, Clay asks, do I like to drag flats or ledges? Me personally, it doesn't matter. It really depends on the fish. I would probably say that I would prefer to drag flats because it's easier, but a lot of times I would be dragging ledges because I know that there's a higher chance for those fish to be on those ledges than on the flats. Let's go back here. So hopefully that answers your question. Hopefully that helps about, uh, why I use lighter weights. Now, there are times that I will use a heavier weight. Okay, for instance, this is a Partners in Slime. I believe that's a 2 ounce. I believe this is a 3 or a 4 ounce Partners in Slime. Now, this is, if you guys can hear that and see that, that's a magnet. This is steel down here, okay, with this has got like a foam on top of it. They seem to work good. I don't mind using them at all. Now, where these are kind of a plastic with lead inside of them, and as you can kind of hear, they kind of rattle too a little bit. They don't make much noise. But anyway, you know, so I will use a heavier weight. For instance, if there's more current, if I am dragging in current, um, about the only time I can get away with a light weight, which is like the lightest weight I would normally use is an ounce, ounce and a half. But you can't pull very fast. You got to be using a smaller piece of bait, kind of a small float, small fish kind of deal. If I am using bigger baits and bigger, floats, demon dragons, things like that, then I will definitely go up a little bit in weight just to make sure. Thank you, Dieter, for that. I didn't see what was going on. Just took care of it. You just got to go on with it, Dieter. It'll be all right. So, do I suspend planer boards or drag bottom as well? I definitely do. I will do both of them together. So, I will use the planer boards to kind of suspend baits up off the bottom, and get a variety of stuff out there. Okay, if you're just dragging, then you're limiting yourself to just one thing. But now, in the colder time of year that we're really talking about now, then I will specifically just stay with dragging baits. Okay. Pam asked, what's the biggest difference between drifting lakes and rivers other than current? Um, just how the fish reacts. So, in a lake, those fish are used to not having current. Okay. But in a river system, those fish are not used to really not having current. So they may suspend higher. They may, be set up on structure differently than what normally would be. So those are kind of the differences. Um, and how you would fish them would be a little bit different as well. You may in lakes you're going to you're going to drag a lot of flats, humps, things like that. But in rivers, a lot of it's going to be ledges style of fishing. But kind of go back on that question about suspending baits under planer boards. I get a lot of questions asked of why I use offshore tackle planer boards, and this is one of the big reasons. Like when I started before, when I started to say, at the beginning, each planer board will pull differently. Okay, so there might be a planer board out there that if you are specifically just dragging, that's going to pull really, really good at low speeds. But if you want a planer board that is going to be kind of the best of both worlds, where you can drift in rivers with heavy weights and big style bait, then you want something that's going to be able to handle that. To where if like an offshore tackle planer board, a Pro Mag, it can handle 10 ounces suspended with a really, really big bait. And that's going to allow you to drift backwards in those river sections and with those bigger baits on. Okay. Justin's fishing fetish is bumping effective in colder water. So, me personally, I do know some guys that bump in water down into, the high 40s. But me personally, I like to use a different approach. If you have enough current to bump and the water's that cold, then I'm going to look for them kind of stacked up in holes. Those fish are going to position in a different way, in a different manner, if there's current with water that is that cold. Let's see here. Real Catnappers asks, with water temps here similar to yours in the mid 30s, what temp do you say is the temp on the spring temp rise you see the fish really start to pick up? So for me, uh, whenever I really start seeing fish activity really pick up, now right now it's good for me. You know, those fish are stacked up in trees and in holes and on the back sides of humps, things of that nature. So uh, right now is a super good time to be able to, you know, to really get a lot of good fish. Okay, but as that water temperature rises for flatheads, particularly, you'll start getting into that, you know, that 60-degree mark. When you hit to that 60-degree mark, you know, you're really getting, you know, those flatheads are going to start to, you know, wake up and get active and start moving. Um, let's see. Now, somebody, I believe it was Swamp Diver that said, you know, that he would get above them and bump through very slowly, and it can be productive. And I highly believe that. You know, and have seen it. You know, I've seen some guys do it down for winter blues and different places like that. You know, for me, I would, you know, I personally would just, you know, like to approach it a different way. Not saying that that is the only way, but, you know, so if you like to bump and you're in that situation, definitely give it a try. Glenn asks, do larger boards pull out further than shorter ones? So the let's talk about that for a second. You know, so depending on the boards you're talking about, for me, I use offshore tackle planer boards. Love them. Like I said earlier, they, you know, give me the best of kind of all worlds. You know, hanging big baits and big weights and current, but I can still pull boards with light weights. Now I use the OR 22 and the Pro Mag. Okay, so the Pro Mag is a bigger board. That doesn't mean that it's going to pull out more than the shorter board. Okay, there's a lot of small, specific style boards specific to dragging that actually drag better than the offshore tackle boards. But if you go to hang weight on them, you know, hang a heavy weight on them, they're not gonna be able to hold it up, and they're gonna sink. But now, if you're specifically looking to just drag baits, you know, no matter, you know, and that's all you're going to do, then definitely look at that other avenue. They're going to be able to perform better for you, um, you know, in that situation. So hopefully that kind of helps you out. And Dieter, I appreciate you jumping in there and kind of helping take care of things tonight. So next question is, how do you convert your body to even to try to drag baits? Okay, so Jeff, you just got to try it. You know, Jeff's asking kind of how do you convince yourself to, you know, convince your buddy to even do it. Uh, Best way to do it is to leave your anchor at home and only take dragon weights. Specifically, you know, go out there with that in mind and try it. It's going to, you know, you're going to want to pull your hair out, uh, but you just got to do it. If you want to learn to do it, you know, you got to do it. You got to just go and try it, fail, and keep trying again. And if I missed your question, I apologize. Uh, yeah, so dragging is a very good way to locate fish, and once you find them, then you can decide to kind of do a little bit different, or keep dragging, dragging baits. So that's kind of my take on dragging baits in the colder times of the year. For anybody that missed me at the Catfish Conference, we'll be doing another expo this weekend at Columbus Fishing Expo in Sharonville, or not Columbus, Cincinnati Fishing Expo in Sharonville, which is Cincinnati, Ohio. So make sure you guys come over, check us out. Don't have much Cat apparel and stuff left. Got a few things, handful of hoodies, handful of shirts, but we do got some tackle. I'm gonna have some rods, some Warrior Cat rods there, a bunch of tackle from Tackle Bandit. So make sure you guys come out to Sharonville Cincinnati Fishing Expo this weekend. We'll be set up in the brush pile booth, selling all that stuff. Got seminars, 2 seminars Friday, one on flatheads and one intro to fishing, and then 2 seminars Saturday as well. So also, if you get a chance and you like the information we're putting out, make sure you hit that like button, subscribe, give us that thumbs up. Go over to the Catfish Crazy website, and let's see, Catfish Crazy TV on Facebook and Instagram and YouTube. Sign up for all that social media stuff as well. Also, if you get a chance, make sure you give a big shout out to all the sponsors that give me the opportunity to put this stuff out there for you guys. If it wasn't for them and the love of this sport, I wouldn't be able to do this. So I want to thank you guys for watching tonight. Thank everybody for helping out. Until next week, we will catch you guys on the water. Thanks for watching.